I did a show at the BBC. Frank Sinatra and Bob Hope. It was a show at the Festival Hall in aid of Princess Margaret and Earl Mountbatten's charity, something big, huge charity show. Enormous orchestra, fantastic band. And Bob Hope came in the afternoon to rehearse, and he went on and on and on, knowing he was taking up all the camera time, changing his, everything was off everything he said was always off a cue card. He never said anything live that wasn't read off a cue card.
Really?
This little guy running around holding his things up. He went on and on and on, and Sinatra was pacing up and down saying, I'm going to kill the fucker, I'm going to fucking kill him. Anyway, eventually, we get to do the show, and Bob Hope's supposed to do 40 minutes, and then there's intermission, and Frank was going to do his thing. It was good. Grace Kelly appeared and presented him. It was just a massive show, and the royal family were there, and Princess Margaret and all that stuff. And Bob Hope got on, and he was really not funny. You could see he was sort of not on at all, and the audience weren't laughing. And he went on, and he went on, and he went on, and he went past the 40 minutes, and he went past the hour, and he went like an hour and 15 minutes, before eventually, he was getting so little reaction from the audience, he left.
Was he improvising things?
No, nothing at all. But just the way his timing was all wrong. And because he was looking around, you'd make a joke, look around, there wasn't a reaction, then he'd get pissed off or rattled or something. He wasn't good anyway. And so the next day I'm in editing, and the phone rings, and it's Bob Hope, and he said, I want you to know that I know I was supposed to do 40 minutes, but I want the whole time I was in. I do not want one joke cut. And I said, I'm not sure I can do that because we've got a time slot. He said, I'm sorry, you're going to have to cut some of Mr. Sinatra's work because you're not cutting any of mine. So I said, I referred him to my boss, Bill Cotton. And Bill Cotton, he said the same thing to Bill Cotton. Bill Cotton said, well, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Either we're going to be able to cut your show to 40 minutes, or we're going to cut it all. You can't do that. He said,
for him.
We can. This is the BBC. This is the BBC you're talking to, old man. We cut him out of the show.
Oh my gosh.
Became the Frank Sinatra show. No Bob Hope.
So they didn't like each other?
Well, he was jealous that he had to open for Frank.
Can you imagine that?
He was jealous he had to open for Frank. See? They didn't talk to each other at all.
I mean, there was enough for everybody. Those guys were the kings of the world.
Yeah. Anyway, the show was great. Sinatra was fabulous, and then we got drunk together. I went back to see him, and he sat me down, and he gave me some bourbon, which I'd never tasted before. We don't have bourbon in England.
No?
Jack Daniels, no.
Yeah.
And so we both got fairly drunk, and then he took me to this banquet he was invited to at Princess Margaret's castle, St. James's Palace. I said, I can't go, I'm not invited. No, you're coming along with me. And we went in.
Frank said this.
Frank, and we walked in, and there was this big empty hallway, and Frank is yelling, Maggie, Maggie, where are you, Maggie? I'm going, oh God, I'm going to get beheaded, and this is it.
She probably loved it.
Oh, well no, then we came into the big dining hall. We must have been 35 or 40 people up and down this huge table, and they're all just sitting like that, waiting for Frank, and an empty seat next to Maggie. And he said, oh, hi, I want to introduce my director. And I'm going, oh God, I'm going to get fired, I'm going to get beheaded, I'm going to get, I'm going to jail.
Right, you name it.
And so they had to bring in a chair for me.
Oh, man.
I didn't quite know what was going on anyway, I was so pissed. And So I sat at this long table, nobody talked to me. I didn't talk to anybody else. But I had the thing, and he was in great form. It was a fabulous night.
I shook hands with Frank.
Yeah.
We met each other, well, I was in the heliport in Manhattan, having just flown from JFK to the heliport in Manhattan. I don't know why I was in New York. Was there with Garcia doing something. And then in walks this big thug of a man, walks in with one of these plastic jackets, you know, on the back it says Sinatra, security. Like, you know. And then Frank comes in, this little wispy,
tiny little,
little tiny, gray, very frail.
Yes.
Like 1980.
My
five or six or
71. He was just sort of making a comeback at some stage.
Mr. Sinatra, nice to meet you. Oh yeah, kid. Whatever.
Kid always.
I don't know.
We when we were rehearsing with the orchestra, his musical director came in with his rhythm section, and they had the big symphony orchestra set up in a rehearsal room. And he wasn't supposed to come to rehearsal. They said he was only coming a day later. And they're sitting like musicians, you know, they're reading books on stamps and dirty magazines, and crosswords and stuff like that, you know. And the conductor's trying to go through all the music. Suddenly the big double doors opened, and the lights shone, and there was this. It was like from a movie, from a science fiction movie. There's this figure framed in this glittering light in the doorway, and Frank. He's come in a day early, and he's come to rehearsal. And the whole orchestra went sat to attention. The books were all flown away. They all sat to attention, and I was petrified because I'd been getting phone calls for weeks from Jilly saying, Mr. Sinatra wants this and Mr. Sinatra wants that, and don't forget this, and one thing you must do, Mr. Sinatra does not want any cameras from his right side because he's got a scar. He's got a scar that he's had since a child, doesn't like to be seen. All his close-ups must be from the left side. I'm writing all this down.
Wow.
Oh, fuck, this is going to be a nightmare. And he walks in, and he was politely greeted me and stuff. I didn't know quite how to deal with him. And he started, and this man couldn't read music, and he was picking out the oboe in the section, and da 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 da. You should have gone da 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 da, you know, like that.
Yeah.
He was talking to the orchestra.
Yeah.
Went through this thing, and then we broke for tea, and there was that night. Or the night before, a couple of nights before, there'd been a big boxing match in England that Cassius Clay had beaten up the English champion. So I thought maybe I can talk about that. So I said, you know, did you see the fight? Immediately he was absolutely a different human being. Oh God, you remember da-da-da-da? And then I said, well, if you'd like to come out on stage, I'll show you where the cameras are and so on. He said, fuck that, I don't care. I said, well, you know, I got a call from Jilly. He said, you know, about your right side, your scar. He said, fuck that. Put cameras wherever you like.
Oh, really?
He said, all I want is one camera that I can look into when I want to, because that camera is the camera that people sitting at home, 2 people, 1 people, 3 people, a family, I can look into their eyes.
Right. Yeah, that was his thing.
That's all I want. I don't care what else you do.
Yeah.
So all those phone calls, scary phone calls from Jilly, were up to nothing. And it's what he did. Every time he wanted to make a point, he looked right into this. It was a permanent close-up. There it was.
Yeah. Wow.
Great. Just great.